right, what we're working with today is adding and subtracting integers. So whenever you're adding and subtracting integers, one thing I'd like you to be able to do is you can always use a number line if you need to help see it, and if you can't remember the rules. I know that different teachers in the past have probably taught you different things, and so I'm going to basically teach you 3 rules. But before we do the 3 rules, let's look at these first 3 problems. So I always start at 0, okay? And so for this first problem, whenever it says a negative, if I have a negative number, let me actually write negative. If I have a negative number, I'm going to go to the left. And if I have a positive number, my positive direction is to the right. So for this first one, when it says -5, I'm going to go to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my first stop. And then it says +3. So then I'm going to go to the right. 1, 2, 3. And that's where I'm at. I'm at -2. Okay. For the next one, let's change colors. So I start off by going to, I'll do this one below it. I'm going to go to the left 2 because it's a -2. So 1, 2. There's my first stop. But then it also says -4. It looks like a minus, but really it's just another negative. And so 1, 2, 3, 4. So my final stop, I was at -6. And then last one, using a number line, I start at 0, and I go over 1, 2. That's my first stopping point because there's a +2. But now it says -8, so I need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so my final stopping point is at -6. Okay, so if you need to use a number line, you can use a number line. I really hope that you're able to memorize these rules and use the rules. Okay? Because we want integers to be a little faster. We don't want you to always have to draw a number line, but it's a good reference if you have questions. Okay, so there's 3 rules for adding. If you have the same sign, you're going to add and keep that sign. Okay, so some examples. If I have 5 plus 2, this is a positive. This is a positive. So I add them and I get 7. And since both of them are positive, it stays positive. Okay, -3 plus -2. This is a negative. This is a negative. So I add them and I get -5, and it stays negative because both of those are negative. One more example. Okay, we'll squeeze one more example up here. Okay, the next one, 3, -3 minus 4. This is a negative, and this is a negative, even though it says subtraction. Subtraction is just negative. Negative. So since they're both negatives, I get -7. Because they're both negatives, they stay negative. So really it's important for you to think of what each sign is, and if it's the same sign, add. The second rule is if you have different signs, you subtract. So same is adding, different is like difference, and you subtract. For this one, you keep sign of bigger number. Okay? And so I'm going to change colors. Let's do a different color for this one. So I have, let's say I have 5 plus negative 8. This is positive. This is negative. So different signs subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3. But since this number is bigger, it's negative 3 because 8 is bigger than 5. Okay. Let's say I have negative 2 plus 7. This is negative. This is positive. Different signs subtract. 7 minus 2 is 5. And since 7's bigger, it's positive 5. Okay. And then let's try one last one. 8 minus 4. This one's positive. This one's negative. Different signs subtract, and I get 4. And since 8 is bigger, it's positive 4. Okay? So same sign add, different signs subtract. Okay? The last rule I have is that if two negatives are touching, you circle them and they become positive. Okay, you cannot do this if there is a number in between them. You can do it if it looks like this. Okay, you can do this if there's just a parenthesis. So it would become both positives here. Okay, so that's kind of one rule. You can do it with parentheses. Let me see if I can insert some space. Nope. Okay, so then we'll write some examples of this last one on the side. Let me change colors. So if I have 3 minus negative 2, I want you to physically circle it and make it plus. And now I have two positives, positive and positive. So it's going to be 5. Okay, you can squeeze one in here. Negative 6 minus negative 4. Two negatives touching. Now this is a negative, and this one's a positive. So different signs subtract, so it's 2. And the 6 was bigger, so it's negative 2. Okay. All right, and this last rule we've already done a bunch of, and subtraction is just the same size, same thing as adding a negative. I know I'm sure you've had some teachers that have done that. I've seen probably some people do this. So it's 5 plus negative 2. But I just want you to notice that this is a negative, and so you would just do different signs subtract. Okay? All right, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look at these examples, copy them down, and try them for yourself. And when you think you have it, press play. Okay, so hopefully you noticed this was a negative. This was a positive. Different signs subtract, so it's 1. And since 5 is bigger, it's positive 1. Number 2, 3 is a positive. 8 is a negative. Different signs subtract, so it's 5. And since 8 is bigger, it's negative 5. For number 3, I have two negatives touching. And so this is positive, and now this one's positive. And same sign add, so 4 plus 2 is 6, and since they're both positive, it stays positive. Number 4, here's a negative and here's a negative. Same sign add, and so 2 plus 3 is 5, and it's a negative because they're both a negative. Number 5, negative and positive. Different signs subtract, so it's 5. And since 7 is bigger, it's negative 5. And last one, number 6, you should have changed these signs. And so now this one's a negative, this one's a positive. And so different signs subtract, and it's negative 3. So you remember those 3 rules: same sign add, different sign subtract, and two negatives when they're touching become a positive. And take your time, but you need to be able to learn these and understand these.